Welcome back. Well, now we're taking a look at some actions that are being taken by some states as a result of COVID-19. We've got two gentlemen here in the studios with us. Remy Hassan is the SSA Media to the Ogun State Governor. And then we also have Reverend Stephen Adeyemi, who is the Secretary for the Christian Association of Nigeria, Ogun State Chapter. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on this morning.
A pleasure.
Well, it's something that people want more information, particularly Ogun State. So haven't seen how those cases, and now you've taken certain steps about that. So, Mr. Hassan, if I could start with you, how is the state approaching this?
It all began with us in Nigeria, if we must go back to the first index case. It began with an Italian visiting the country, coming to the country through Lagos, staying the night, and then coming over to Ogun State to do business. And while he was there, he began to get symptomatic. And taking it up from that point, because of the peculiar nature of infectious disease management in Nigeria, diseases of that magnitude can't be managed at our level, because there are just 3 locations where they can be managed in Nigeria: Lagos, Irua, and Abuja. Of course, the closest to us in the circumstance is Lagos. So he was moved in a closed ambulance to Lagos to be sure that what he was showing symptoms of is actually what it is. Of course, it turned out to be that it was COVID-19. And there and then, the state took it up by getting across to all the contacts he has had while within our state. Lagos State government, too, took it up. The contact he had in Lagos before coming in to Ogun State. At the first instance, we had 28. Thereafter, it moved to 40. And all of them were isolated in the facility of the particular industry that in this case visited. And in the course of their period of isolation, 2 of them became susceptible to the virus. Tests were carried out. 1 was positive, the other was negative. And the positive one was taken up immediately as well to get it managed and contained. And a few days after, he also turned out negative, which means the treatment worked. But we didn't stop at that. There are countries of the world where this COVID-19 actually has its epicenter: China and some parts of Europe. And Ogun State is the industrial hub of Nigeria. And a large chunk of the industries based in Ogun State are owned and manned by Chinese, who have been coming in and out. So we also took a step to visit those industries, business premises, and other related places of residence, just so that we'll be on the same page with all these people to self-isolate. And whoever is symptomatic is brought out.
Is that what, a supervised self-isolation?
Yes, because our officials were at the premises where these isolations were taking place, so that entry and exit out of such premises are controlled in order not to allow spread within the state. 1 person was even susceptible, sort of.
While in self-isolation?
Yes. And no, it wasn't while in self-isolation per se. It was because we were told that he was treated for malaria a few days before the isolation began. We wanted to be sure that it was just malaria. So we had to quickly move him to the IDH in Yaba. And by the time the test result came out, it turned negative. These are proactive measures that were taken as a state until a few days ago when we had to go full blast. And that's because our state is a peculiar state. You can't come out of Lagos without passing through Ogun State. And you can't come into Lagos without passing through Ogun State. If you come into Nigeria through Lagos and you have business doing in another part of the country, Ogun State is a passageway for you. So whatever affects Lagos affects us. So we have gone one step further by reducing crowd gathering to not more than 50.
Before you go there, what kind of collaboration? Now you've talked a little more frequently about the peculiarity of the relationship between Lagos and Ogun State. What kind of regular collaboration are you having with the state government? Because, I mean, increasingly we are having cases of, increased number of people who are being traced and being affected by these things. In the process of wanting to curtail this, what kind of collaboration or interface are you having with the Lagos State government?
As a matter of fact, between our State Ministry of Health and the Lagos State Ministry of Health, there is a working relationship that has gone beyond lip service. Millions of workers in Lagos reside in Ogun State. In other words, they go to do business in Lagos and come back to stay or sleep in Ogun State. That tells you straight away that whatever contact they have in Lagos, they're bringing it back to Ogun State. So we have no choice than to work together. And it's been a very symbiotic relationship.
So can Ogun State, you can carry out testing, yeah?
We cannot. I mentioned that earlier,
okay,
that infectious disease of the magnitude of COVID-19 are specialized. So tests can only be carried out in specialized centers, and there are only 3 of such
are you working
in Nigeria.
That in Ogun State?
We already made a request, both to WHO and to the Federal Ministry of Health. Because of our peculiarity, we have an isolation center at the Olabisi Onabanjo University Teaching Hospital. We've requested that that center be upgraded to a diagnostic center. WHO has agreed to do that, but they said the gestation for getting that fully done may not be less than 24 months. But in the interim, we are constrained to manage what we have in Lagos. They said it can be less, but it may not be.
You imagine that the WHO will be very busy now trying to, handle
you
so
just
24 months, 2 years. So
yes.
Basically for this period, Ogun State cannot...
We're constrained to diagnosing.
What about managing
Lagos.
Patients? Can you manage?
Managing patient is still at the IDH in Yaba. If the hospital discharges that you are negative, we can manage post-treatment. But at the level of treatment proper, we can't.
So I imagine all the states feeding into just Lagos. I mean,
not all the states.
The states in this
in
area,
the southwest,
basically.
for example.
But I was going to ask. You talked about supervised isolation. Yeah. I believe. Do you still have people that are under supervised isolation at this point?
Most of them have had their incubation period lapsed. But where we have information that new entry are coming into such facilities, we also move in and ensure that that particular person self-isolates.
So do you have an idea how much people, maybe the contacts, are currently under that supervised?
Not less than 100 that we have in Ogun State that have been such under self-isolation. As at now, most of them have had their isolation period lapsed.
I understand that one of the measures being taken is about public gathering. Now, the challenge is it public gathering or religious gathering?
Religious gathering is just one of the numerous gatherings that you have in the public space. The school system is a public gathering. Nightclub is a public gathering. You have conferences, seminars, and what have you, occasions, parties. And of course, in Ogun State, we're known for that. We gather to rejoice, to enjoy, to spend some time together. We are saying at this time, don't make the other person susceptible. Because what WHO said this morning, for example, is that 4 out of every 5 contacts of the virus are from carriers who don't even know that they are carrying this.
What about markets, for example, marketplaces?
They are also there, but at the stopgap measure now, because if you're going to close market, it then means that you're closing source of living, in other words, food and what have you. So in the market at this time, there is a regulated campaign that ensures that social distance is kept and the use of hand sanitizers is also promoted in our marketplaces. We're doing that, but if we have need to close the market, we may have no choice.
So, Reverend Stephen, how is the body, the religious body, How are you implementing this announcement by the state?
Well, let me start by saying that since this situation came up, the leadership of Christian Association of Nigeria, Ogun State, have been following and we have been discussing. On the 27th of February, we gathered all our leaders together and the personnel of WHO came to talk to us about it, how we can prevent, what we can do. Now, we were working on that. But when the government came up with the directive yesterday, and knowing fully well that the number one responsibility of the government is to secure the lives of the citizens, the people. So we see the responsibility on us as well to comply with the directive of the government. And that is why yesterday we called our leaders together. We had a...
Nationwide?
No, Ogun State. Christian Association of Nigeria, Ogun State chapter. We called our leaders together and we held a meeting. Of course, the state chairman had made discussions earlier on with people, with the government as well. And then we had an emergency meeting yesterday morning with the head of blocks of CAN in Ogun State, the state officers, the local government chairman, and the SCDA chairman, so to discuss the directive of the government. And we all agree that the best thing to do at a time like this is to follow the directive of the state government.
How convenient is that decision for CAN?
Well, to be sincere, it is not convenient, because I can say it's like something that has not happened before, that you will tell the church for this reason and this reason, we will have to change the way we have our regular worship. But what is the primary responsibility of the church? To save life and preserve life.
He did say not more than 50. So how are you going to implement it?
Well, yesterday we have discussed about it, that it is even an opportunity to expand. We don't see it as evil. Okay. You know, the scripture says in book of Romans 8:28 that all things work together for the good of those who love God. So what we are doing is we can break into house fellowships instead of coming together in our big cathedral.
Okay, so now there will be no coming together, whether or not it's above or below 50.
We will have some people worshiping in the church around that number below, but others will break to their...
How are you going to enforce social distancing? Because just as you very well know, this disease, is spread a lot more and faster through, human contact. So how are you going to take human distancing on board, whether at house fellowship level or even at the small gatherings you talked about?
We discussed it yesterday, and even amidst ourselves, we have started practicing it so that others, we understand what we are talking about. Because I remember even when we called on the WHO the other time, when they thought about sanitizers, we bought it and they dramatized it with us. Demonstrated it to us. And then yesterday too, we started saying, okay, this is what they were telling us. Now you don't just shake people, you don't just hug people, and so on and so forth. It's not because we don't love ourselves, but because we love ourselves, we want to preserve our lives. So
something happened in South Korea, which was a major concern. So there was this sect, and apparently the head of the sect, or generally, they tried to conceal the cases. So there was someone that had the COVID-19, came into the sect, and it began to spread. But apparently they had this belief that, we'll find a way to handle it. And it blew up in the face of South Korea. And there are concerns that there might be some of these, religious individuals that have maybe, some church somewhere, and they tell people, come, we can handle this, and people keep coming. Do you have some monitoring in place such that something like that won't happen?
Well, we are still, it is not that we are stopping. We are still thinking, we are still working. We have only taken the step of what the state government has done now. Of course, we are still working. What else do we need to do? And of course, on this, we are also thinking that how do we get this information down to the grassroots and to make sure that people comply, our churches comply. And of course, our churches are going to comply.
Let me rephrase that question. What if we have, okay, so do you see any possibility where some clergymen in Ogun State would not comply? They would still encourage their people to come around, to the churches and say, the name of Jesus is bigger than COVID-19. The name of Jesus is bigger than coronavirus. What happens in that case?
I'm not seeing that coming. And the reason being that this decision was not taken by the state executives. We called the heads of blocks and, of course, the head of churches under the various blocks. And, of course, we expect that we are giving them the money to go home, to go and discuss with the head of churches and to pass information down to the grassroots. So we are not expecting that. We are not expecting that.
Comment on that. As a state, part of the measures we have taken based on this directive is to get all the security agencies on alert. So where such gatherings happen, there might be some intervention from security agencies to disperse immediately. And whoever is behind such gathering will have been seen to be at variance with what the state's mindset is. And the needful will be done in the circumstance.
So there will be no sacred cows, this
None
is untouchable.
at all.
You earlier mentioned that now the state has gone full blast. What is that full blast measure like? What does it look like?
At the level that we're in now, restricting crowd to not more than 50 is at a level where we're probably on the ambience, the yellow light. If we have reasons to record outbreaks that suggest to us that we need to take it a lot higher, there might be a stay-at-home order for everybody. As of now, all schools, whether private or public, at the close of school today, students have been told not to return to school.
But and tertiary too?
Yes. And parents have been told to withdraw their wards from all the boarding facilities, whether in private or public schools, so that you will be home and practice self-isolation. The advantage of this is even that in the 30 days period in the first instance, if there is anyone susceptible to symptoms, within that period, there will be manifestation. And the needful will be done to immediately nip it in the bud, rather than leaving anything to chance. We are trying to manage what is unavoidable so that we will not be confronted with managing or avoiding what is unmanageable.
Just if you can walk me through, help me here. So if there's a suspected case, we understand that it has to be tested in Lagos. So what happens is, do you take the person to Lagos or you take the specimen, so you test the person and take it to Lagos? How does it work?
It's a sample.
Okay.
And thank God for WHO that has helped us in this wise. They are responsible for the logistic of the movement of the samples to Lagos using the various courier services and make it fast, especially if it is on motorbike. So it is the sample, not the person. Where it is positive, the person now moves to the IDH.
How many people can you move to Lagos? Because you have to perhaps take them each in an ambulance, perhaps. So how much capacity do you have in moving and transporting people to Lagos?
We have not recorded any kind of incidents that require movement in mass. It's been isolated cases. So the few that we have moved, we've not had the challenge of moving them. And we have the facility to move them anyway.
I'm not talking about now. I'm asking about your preparedness, because that's the major thing here. It seemed as though a lot of people took this for granted, and it appears to now be blowing in our face. So if this is full-blown, how much capacity do you have? Or how much work does the state have to do to improve this capacity?
We're preparing for the worst, though, expecting the best in the circumstance. And it doesn't matter what happens. With the assistance of WHO and the Federal Ministry of Health, we are coping, and we still believe we can cope a lot more.
What kind of economic considerations is the state thinking about? Because, when people are restricted, schools are closed, people will be home, they don't know how long they will be at home for. What is the government thinking?
That as a matter of fact, is one of the major challenges that we have. And a few weeks back, as if we knew that a day like this was going to come, the state government took the initiative to readdress our financial fortunes as a state in such a way that exposures, new facilities, credit rating, and world of view are re-engineered such that this period will be such that we will have created a buffer that will not allow the adversity to be too much on us. So we are ready for that. It is the stimulus that the federal government is actually planning that we believe will address that of the larger populace more. And we are also looking at tapping into that opportunity if and when it comes.
Which area are you looking into specifically? If you could
mainly it has to be food production, because that is the essential of survival. Then healthcare delivery, for now, especially if it goes into a total shutdown. This morning, California, the largest state economy in the United States, ordered a complete shutdown. But of course, they have their own stopgap measures that will address all of that, just like us as well. We also have our stopgap measures. We're prepared. And with what we have put in place, we are not saying that the impact will not be there, but it can still be managed. We will pull through.
Let me, come in on this same question. The challenge is not the plan. Many people believe that the challenge is in how this plan will be played out. You mentioned the other time that there could be, if it ever gets to the situation where government shuts down the state, stay at home, everybody. You've talked about food production and all of that. People can't go out. How will these people get this stimulus package that government is thinking about?
If you have to do a food supply to take care of what is like a total scarcity of food, definitely you use whatever geographical coloration that you have there, in states, in wards, in local government, and what have you, and ensure that it gets to the remotest of remote places. So that won't be a problem.
We've had situations, Mr. Hassan, where government, sets aside some resources for people in the IDPs, and it's government officials that, have been reported to take those things to themselves. In some cases, they sell them to the people in the IDPs, or even take them out of the IDPs entirely and sell somewhere else. It's mitigating
It's going to be
that.
practically difficult, if not impossible, when everybody is now an internally displaced person. You will find it difficult to create a market for that kind of product, because the people you're going to sell it to may be the enemy that are waiting to swallow you up. So I don't see that coming, and I'm praying that we don't get to that point.
Reverend Ademi, on a final note, are we being pessimistic here maybe? Because I know you probably have a different perspective. Is this all pessimism?
Well, I believe that what is said is what they are planning to do. Our own role is to pray, and we believe. In fact, we are praying that this will not last, that God will intervene and it will stop. But we believe in God, and also we believe in the government.
Okay, but while we pray, we'll just have to keep those plans in place and do all we can to ensure that that doesn't happen. Because I was asking, where the gathering is supposed to be not more than 50, how do you communicate that to people? Because if I don't know that there are already 48 or 50 there, and I come in there, oh, it's more than 50, so that's where I was leading to. Do you have that all figured out?
Of course, the church leaders, we have to work that one out. When it comes to
but
worship.
You're part of the leaders.
Of course.
You don't have any information on that?
Of course, as
It's going to be denomination by denomination.
Of course, it's going to be denomination. That's why I talk about the head of churches the other time. You know, our information flow through structure, from executive together with the head of blocks and down to the head of churches. And head of churches, we pass information to the grassroots with their pastors.
I think the realistic thing to do in the circumstances, if we say not more than 50, and the church is trying to now do this service on house fellowship level, maybe you can say 35 maximum, and if you have any increase in the circumstance, it will still be below the 50 threshold.
Yeah, important thing, we all need to work together, work towards this, and ensure that we do what we can to keep everyone safe. Well, I have to thank you both for coming on. Honorable Remi Hassan is the SSA Media to Ogun State Governor, and then we have Reverend Stephen Adeyemi, who is the Secretary of CAN Ogun State Chapter. Thank you both for coming on. And then, actually, on the matter, I've been seeing lots of questions coming through. The emergency number is 112. So please do note that it's 112. So if there's anything scroll on, some information somewhere, apologies for that. It's 112. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.